Anniversaries are meant to celebrate love, loyalty, and commitment. That's what I believed as I hosted a family party to mark 10 years of my marriage to Lisa. Our house was filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and warm smiles. My wife, dressed in a stunning red gown, looked radiant as she greeted our guests. I couldn't help but feel grateful for everything we'd built together: our home, our family, and our life. But beneath the surface of all the cheer, there was a nagging feeling in my gut that something wasn't right. It wasn't just the occasional cold shoulder Lisa had given me over the past few months. It was the way she avoided eye contact, the way she spent hours on her phone, and the late nights she claimed were girls' outings. As I mingled with the guests, I overheard whispers between Lisa and my mom in the kitchen. Their voices were hushed but laced with urgency. I leaned closer to hear. "Are you crazy? Mike's here. He could catch you," my mom said, her voice trembling. Lisa's laugh echoed coldly. "I don't care about that loser. He won't do anything. He's just a provider." For a moment, I froze. The words pierced through me like a dagger. My mind raced. Who was she talking about? And why was she so confident I wouldn't react? Gathering my courage, I stepped toward the kitchen. What I saw next would change everything. As I walked into the kitchen, my heart pounded like a drum. The scene before me was like something out of a nightmare. Lisa was perched on the lap of my so-called best friend, Kevin. Her arm was draped casually around his neck, and they were laughing like teenagers at a secret joke. The room went silent as I entered. My mother's face turned pale, and she quickly stepped forward, blocking my view as if that would erase what I'd just seen. "Mike, it's not what you think," she stammered, her eyes darting nervously between me and Lisa. Lisa didn't even flinch. Her expression was cold and unbothered, as if she had been caught doing something as innocent as eating the last slice of cake. She smirked, leaning closer to Kevin, and said, "No, loser. It's exactly what you think. We're together. And guess what? If you try to divorce me, you'll never see your kids again." My stomach churned. Her words were like poison, each syllable burning as they sank into my heart. My mom tried to grab my arm, pleading, "Mike, let's just go and talk about this in private." But her attempts to shield Lisa only fueled my anger. I locked eyes with Lisa, who wore her defiance like a badge of honor. My best friend Kevin sat frozen, his smirk fading as he realized I wasn't going to let this slide. But instead of shouting or making a scene, I simply turned around and walked away. There was no point in confronting them. Not yet. My silence spoke louder than any words could, leaving a heavy tension hanging in the air as I exited the room. As I walked out into the crisp night air, my mind was racing. I needed a plan, and it had to be one that would not only free me from Lisa, but also ensure that she couldn't use my kids as leverage. I headed straight for my study, where I kept the marriage certificate and all our important documents. I knew exactly what I needed to do next. As I sat in my study, staring at the marriage certificate on my desk, memories of the past few months came flooding back. Moments I had brushed aside as mere paranoia, but now realized were glaring red flags. Kevin had always been a frequent visitor to our home, and I had never questioned it. He was my best friend, after all, someone I trusted completely. But over time, his visits began to feel different. I remembered one evening when I came home early from work. Kevin's car was parked in the driveway, which wasn't unusual. What struck me, though, was the hurried way Lisa greeted me at the door, blocking my view of the living room. "Oh, you're home early," she had said with a nervous laugh. Her hair was slightly disheveled, and there was a faint flush on her cheeks. Kevin emerged a few moments later, his shirt untucked, holding a glass of water. "Just helping Lisa with some home repairs," he had explained, casually. I glanced at the untouched toolbox on the floor, but I shook off the thought. After all, why would I doubt my wife or my best friend? Then there was the night I found them in our bedroom. I had woken up feeling thirsty and realized Lisa wasn't in bed. I got up to look for her and found the door to our room slightly ajar. Through the gap, I could see Lisa sitting on the edge of the bed, her back to me, and Kevin standing close to her, speaking in a low tone. My heart sank as I pushed the door open. "What's going on here?" I asked, my voice betraying my unease. Lisa turned to me, startled but quickly recovered. "Mike, relax. Kevin was just helping me pick out some decor ideas for the room," she said, waving her phone in the air as if to prove her point. Kevin chimed in, "Yeah, man, we were just brainstorming." Something felt off, but their calm demeanor made me doubt myself. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe it was just my imagination. So I dismissed the uneasy feeling and went back to bed. Now, sitting in my study with the weight of their betrayal, fresh in my mind, I realized how blind I had been. The signs were always there, but I had chosen to trust them. That trust had been shattered tonight. The more I thought about it, the more determined I became to ensure that they would never take advantage of me again. My next steps had to be precise, calculated, and devastating. The memories haunted me like ghosts, each one more painful than the last. Every time I had dismissed my instincts, every excuse I had accepted, every time I had trusted Lisa and Kevin, they all played back in my mind, fueling a silent fury that burned within me. But anger wasn't enough. I knew Lisa and Kevin didn't expect me to act. To them, I was just the provider, someone too weak to confront them, let alone retaliate. They had underestimated me, and now it was time to prove them wrong. I stood up from my desk, opened the drawer where I kept our marriage certificate, and took it out. Holding the document in my hands, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the betrayal etched in every line. This paper symbolized everything I thought we had built together: a partnership, a family, a future. But it was all a lie. I thought back to Lisa's smug declaration at the party. "If you try to divorce me, you'll never see your kids again." The audacity of her threat only strengthened my resolve. If she thought she could manipulate me into staying silent, she was gravely mistaken. I decided to make my move in a way that would leave no room for her games. First, I needed to protect my children. I couldn't let Lisa weaponize them against me, and I wouldn't allow her to control the narrative. Quietly, I began gathering evidence. Everything from text messages and phone records to the moments I had witnessed with my own eyes. Next, I contacted a lawyer, someone I trusted to handle this discreetly. I explained everything: Lisa's infidelity, her threats, and my concerns about the children. The lawyer assured me that we had a strong case, especially with the evidence I was collecting. Finally, I started preparing for the confrontation. I wouldn't let Lisa and Kevin see it coming. This wasn't just about ending my marriage. It was about making them face the consequences of their actions in a way they would never forget. The torn marriage certificate sitting on my desk and the wedding ring I had removed from my finger were just the beginning. Lisa had laughed in my face, believing I would do nothing. Now, it was my turn to show her just how wrong she was. The day of reckoning arrived quicker than I had anticipated. I had everything in place: legal support, evidence, and a steely resolve to confront Lisa and Kevin. I waited for the perfect moment, when their guard was down, and they least expected it. That moment came the following weekend. Lisa was hosting another one of her social gatherings, a lavish affair with family, friends, and, of course, Kevin. As I stood in the corner of the room, watching them laugh and joke as if they hadn't torn my life apart, a strange calm washed over me. When the time felt right, I walked into the center of the room, holding a folder containing the evidence I had painstakingly collected. "Can I have everyone's attention?" I said, my voice steady but firm. The chatter died down as all eyes turned toward me. Lisa looked startled, but quickly masked it with a sweet smile, the same one she had used to manipulate me for years. Kevin, on the other hand, shifted uncomfortably in his seat, sensing that something was off. "Lisa," I began, locking eyes with her, "do you remember what you said at our anniversary party? About me being just a provider? About me not doing anything if I found out about you and Kevin?" Her face paled, but she tried to laugh it off. "Mike, don't be ridiculous. Are you seriously bringing that up here?" "Oh, I'm dead serious," I replied, pulling out the stack of evidence from the folder. "You see, while you were busy sneaking around, I was busy documenting everything: texts, calls, and even a few eyewitness accounts. And guess what? All of it is admissible in court." The room erupted in whispers as I tossed the papers onto the table. Kevin leaned forward to look at them, his face turning ashen as he realized what they were. "Mike, let's not do this here," Lisa pleaded, her voice trembling for the first time. "No, Lisa," I shot back. "We're doing this here because this is where you humiliated me. It's only fitting that everyone sees the truth." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my wedding ring, tossing it onto the table beside the papers. "This is over. I've already filed for divorce. You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon." Lisa's eyes widened in shock, but before she could respond, I turned to Kevin. "And you," I said, my voice dripping with contempt. "You were supposed to be my best friend. Congratulations, Kevin. You've not only ruined my marriage, but also destroyed our friendship. I hope it was worth it." With that, I turned and walked out of the room, leaving them to face the judgment of everyone around them. As I stepped outside, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The confrontation had been brutal, but it was necessary. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of their downfall. As the door slammed behind me, I walked out into the cold night air, feeling a sense of liberation. The confrontation had been intense, but it was only the beginning of my plan. I couldn't rest on my laurels. I had a much bigger responsibility now. Lisa had made her threat loud and clear. "If you divorce me, you'll never see your kids again." But she was about to learn that her empty threats held no power over me. I knew I couldn't allow her to manipulate the situation, especially when it came to our children. My priority wasn't revenge or vindication. It was ensuring that my kids were safe from the chaos that was unfolding. I would not allow Lisa to use them as pawns in her game. The first step in protecting my children was ensuring they were in a stable environment. I had to make sure they were shielded from the emotional fallout of this divorce and from the toxic influence Lisa had exerted over them. I called my lawyer first thing the next morning. We discussed how best to handle the custody situation. With the evidence I had gathered, I had a strong case for joint custody, but I needed to ensure that Lisa couldn't manipulate the children against me. I was determined to fight for equal time with them and to make sure they knew the truth in an age-appropriate way. My lawyer recommended hiring a child psychologist to help explain the situation to my kids. I agreed immediately. I wanted to make sure they understood that they were not at fault for what was happening, that they were loved, no matter what. But that wasn't all. I began taking steps to create a stable environment outside of my marriage. I started making arrangements for the kids and I to move into a new home, away from the memories of Lisa and Kevin. A fresh start, just the three of us. I also took care to ensure that my kids remained connected to their extended family. The one person I knew could help them through. This was my own mother. Her love and support were invaluable, and I knew that she would stand by me in this fight. I wasn't going to let Lisa use the children as leverage. She had already destroyed our family, and now it was my turn to ensure they were kept safe from any more of her manipulation. The court proceedings began shortly after. Lisa fought hard to keep full custody of the kids, but her desperation and lies were no match for the evidence I presented. I had proof of her infidelity, proof of her instability, and proof of her threats. She had made a terrible mistake in thinking she could control the narrative. The judge granted me primary custody of the children, and while Lisa was awarded visitation rights, I knew she would never again have the power to manipulate or control me through them. I had won not just a divorce, but the safety and well-being of my children. As I stood outside the courthouse, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. This battle was over, but the war was just beginning. Lisa and Kevin had taken everything from me, but now I was taking it all back, piece by piece. And this time, I wasn't backing down. The weight of the battle had lifted, but the taste of victory still lingered. I had achieved what I set out to do. I protected my kids, ended my marriage, and walked away with the peace of mind that I had fought back. But there was still one lingering thing left to settle: the matter of revenge. I wasn't about to let Lisa and Kevin get away without facing the consequences of their actions. They had humiliated me in front of our friends and family, played me for a fool, and tried to use my love for my children as leverage to control me. Now it was time to make them realize just how deeply they had underestimated me. I knew that Kevin, despite all the lies he'd told and the betrayal he'd committed, had always seen me as the nice guy, the one who wouldn't retaliate, the one who would let things slide. I was about to shatter that perception. The first part of my revenge plan had already been set in motion. I had found out about Kevin's business, something that had always been a small operation, nothing too big. But I had connections, and with a little digging, I had found a loophole. Kevin had been skimming money from his clients for months, and I had the evidence to expose it all. I made a few calls to the right people, dropping the right hints, and soon the investigation into his business was underway. Kevin's world began to unravel quickly. Within a week, he was called in for questioning, his clients were alerted, and his shady dealings were exposed to the public. His reputation, along with his business, was on the verge of collapse. But that was just the beginning. Lisa, too, wasn't going to be spared. I knew her social circles, her friends, her connections. I made sure that they all knew exactly who she really was. I didn't just whisper rumors. No, I presented them with the full undeniable truth. Her affair wasn't some brief fling. It was a pattern of deceit and betrayal. I made sure every friend, every family member knew about her manipulation, her lies, and how she had tried to tear apart her family for her own selfish desires. I also made sure that the people closest to her, her mother, for instance, understood what she had really done. When I confronted her, I didn't shout, didn't lose my temper. I simply showed her everything. The evidence of her daughter's infidelity, the manipulation, and the lies. It was a conversation that left her speechless, realizing just how much her daughter had hurt not just me, but our entire family. Then came the final, crushing blow. I knew how much Lisa had wanted to control the narrative in front of the kids, but now I made sure she couldn't. The court ruling, the primary custody I had won, meant that I had full control over how the kids were raised and the values they would grow up with. And I made it clear, any further attempts to manipulate them would be met with legal action. Lisa thought she could hold my kids over my head, threaten me with them, and I would just comply. But I wasn't her puppet anymore. The revenge wasn't just about them losing their status or business. It was about Lisa and Kevin losing the power they had over me and realizing the depth of their mistake. And as I looked around, I realized that I had emerged stronger, better, and with my children safe. I walked away with my head held high, knowing I had made the right decisions. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about redemption, about showing myself and the people who had wronged me that I was no longer the victim. I had reclaimed my life, my children, and my dignity. Lisa and Kevin? They were nothing more than a cautionary tale. As the dust settled, I found myself standing at the edge of a new chapter. The chaos, the betrayal, and the revenge were all behind me now, and all that was left was the fallout. What would become of Lisa and Kevin? For Lisa, the consequences were swift and unforgiving. Her social circles began to collapse around her. Friends turned their backs, and family members distanced themselves as the truth came out. Her manipulation and lies were no longer hidden in the shadows. The whispers, once veiled in polite conversation, became deafening. No one could respect her anymore, not after everything that had come to light. She tried to salvage her reputation, but the damage was irreversible. The people she had counted on were no longer there for her. Her life, which once seemed so perfectly curated, began to unravel. Kevin, on the other hand, watched as his business crumbled. His shady dealings, once concealed under the guise of a friendly entrepreneur, were now the talk of the town. His financial stability, which had once given him an air of confidence, evaporated before his eyes. The investigation into his fraudulent actions led to legal battles that drained his resources and reputation. His so-called friends quickly distanced themselves, and his once promising future came crashing down. He was no longer the charming best friend who had once been part of my life. Now he was just another cautionary tale, In the end, they were left with nothing but the consequences of their own choices, alone, with no one to turn to. But as for me, my life, though scarred, had been rebuilt stronger than ever. I had learned lessons I could never have imagined before. Lessons about resilience, self-worth, and the importance of standing up for myself. I had won the battle for my children, ensuring that they grew up in a stable, loving environment. They were safe from the toxicity that Lisa and Kevin had brought into our lives. I found peace in the simple moments with my kids. The laughter around the dinner table, the quiet evenings spent watching movies together, the everyday moments that made up a real family. My relationship with them grew stronger, and I made sure they never felt the weight of what had happened. I became the father they needed, not just in the physical sense, but emotionally too. The love I had for them was the anchor that kept me grounded. I also found the strength to begin moving on, slowly but surely. The bitterness that once consumed me faded with time, replaced by a new sense of purpose. I focused on building my career, reconnecting with old friends, and even allowing myself to be open to the possibility of love again, something I hadn't considered before. And though my journey had been painful, it had shown me just how much I was capable of. The past would always be a part of me, but it didn't define me. I had come out on the other side, not only unbroken, but empowered. As for Lisa and Kevin, their futures were bleak, but they were the ones who had chosen their paths. I had chosen mine, and in the end, it was a path of freedom, of peace, and of true strength.
Thank you for watching, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so and press the notification bell. This way, you'll stay updated with more shocking real-life stories.